This is, I'm guessing, about 1961, 61-ish, maybe 62, I don't know. And, of course, he ended up having to remove that. Now, that girl, Lynn Johnson, was in my elementary school. I don't know how many grades she was in there with, but probably 5 and 6. And in 6th grade, we, the class, 33 different students, picked Lynn Johnson, the only black girl in the entire school, mind you, as the most popular girl in the class. Now, I don't know exactly what that tells you, but it tells you something.
Yeah, it sure does. I don't want to, so anybody else, go ahead.
Well, that's a pretty interesting story, because you can see the differences between the two generations. And believe you me when I tell you, Lynn Johnson was a great girl.
I believe you, and I'm making notes. I want to address all this, but I want everybody else to have a chance to talk if they want to.
Just real quick, Randy, I think a good point, Ray, is that I didn't make, and I've noticed it well. It's generational. And when I look at my parents and their attitudes, and I look at my kids and their attitudes, it's hugely different. So, and I think that's part of the enlightenment and just being more aware and educated of it and understanding, people that are different than them. But, I look at my kids, I'm pretty proud of them. Now, they're a little different. They grew up as Army brats, and so they grew up in a multi-ethnic, fairly multicultural environment, so they may be a little different, although I don't think that much different. So I think generation has a lot to do with it as well.
All right, I guess nobody else has anything they want to say.
I got nothing.
Well,
I reserve the right to comment. N1 WCW.
N3 or more.
KB2 ZVP.
Personally speaking, from my perspective,
That's the only perspective you can speak from.
Exactly. Because of the nature of my faith and whatnot, through most of my life and the congregation I belong to, which were it's predominantly black people, I'd say 70%. I've been around many different types of, well, it's not just black people, but I mean, because of my faith, I'm involved with many different cultures. But I've never really grew up in an environment where multicultural people was ever an issue. People were always people to me. There really isn't a difference because of their skin color. It's if I didn't like somebody, it wasn't because of the way they looked. It was because I just didn't like them, or personalities didn't clash, or whatever it would be. But as far as it goes with race and things of that nature, I personally think the more colors we have, the better the world is.
I think I heard, Mickey, were you trying to get in there?
Yeah, I was. From my experience, I was in education for 15 years, and I can tell you that I think that kids today have a much different perspective and perception of the world and are more accepting of differences. But I will just also say that I think that the media still makes this issue of something that is not as big an issue as we still talk about it being. The only reason we continue putting it in their face is want to claim that our problems are large and they identity.
Yeah, without question. But I don't want to get into the media thing. I want to talk about the society. Okay, as a rule. Okay, that's the crust of this. It's not whether the media makes it out to be something that it's not. I want to know what it is, and that was my question. So what I was going to say, and Ray's story there is kind of along the lines where I'm at, because kids seem to be more accepting of other people, where they learn their where prejudice comes from is from the parents, right, or from the people around them. Whether you're prejudiced against Jews or blacks, most kids aren't prejudiced. Kids play together as kids. They don't know. They don't care if you're black or white or what color you are, but parents. Now, my father was a prejudiced prick, okay? And he didn't, you have to understand, he grew up at a time up in Ephrata where there was no black people, and the only black people that came up there were people that were trying to steal or something like that, or whatever happened. I don't know what happened, but he was prejudiced, and not a bad guy. He would never go out and look for trouble with anybody, but he would look down on or not trust black people. And my cousin, Terry Ray, who is like my favorite cousin, and we are the closest as we could be, married a black guy, and he down in Florida. And my dad, I remember him saying, she had better never bring him here and all this and that, and he was carrying on. My brother would roll over in his grave if he knew that she married a black man and all this and all that. And I think it was really funny that he went to Florida to see my Uncle Tyke, who passed away. His wife is Aunt Terry. Aunt Terry's daughter is Terry Ray. He went to see Aunt Terry. My mom and he went down there. My mom is, always, Gary, don't be an ass, But anyway, he went down there to see Aunt Terry. Well, then Terry Ray comes over with Patrick, her boyfriend, or her husband. And Terry Ray says, you could tell that Uncle Gary wasn't quite too happy about that. And then Patrick went over and started talking to him, and next thing you know, she says, I looked over, and she says, there's Uncle Gary laughing. They're joking around, they're kidding around, and then Patrick calls my mom Aunt Betty, right? So then they had this great time, and then my cousin said every day that they were down there, my father would stop over to their house and see them. And so when my dad and mom came home, they were talking all about Patrick, how great a guy he is. And my father actually said he didn't smell bad or anything. And I thought, Jesus, Dad. I said, yeah, that's stupid. Do you think that he goes, well, I always thought that's what I was always told, So that's from that generation. And you look at how far people have come from those days, like what Ray was talking about from the 50s, from Martin Luther King getting killed and all that stuff. And I think it has gotten a lot. Sure, we have more ways. We got further to go by a long way. I agree wholeheartedly. And I think it's the same with gays and lesbians, and I think people are just more accepted of people because we all have bigger problems to worry about than that guy's skin color over there. How was I going to say that? I had something I wanted to say. So we talk about bigots. Like Bob was talking about bigots that are going to hate. They're always going to hate, okay? And I was talking to Maureen. This is not my Maureen, the other Maureen. I was telling her. I said, let me use the example that I like to use all the time in my life. All the different and multiple colored people with other colors and other skins and other facets of their lifestyle, or it's like the Toad Harbor Net, right? We have all kinds of people here, and if we had all block makers here, would be pretty freaking boring. If we had all pasta makers, it would be boring. If we had all bartenders or truck drivers or whatever. But it's not like that. It's very diversified here, And that's how. But keep in mind, we have bigots here. We have these morons that come in here night after night that want to throw out stupid comments. Those are the same people that don't like black people or don't like gay people because of their sexual preference, or they don't like black people because of their skin color, or they don't like white people because of their skin color. There are always going to be haters. There's always going to be ignorant, just stupid people that hate. Now, they hate because, why? Why do they hate us? Because we talk to each other, and we communicate well with each other, and we pick on each other, we joke around with each other, we have opinions, we have a mind that so there's always going to be haters. So we're never going to get rid of somebody hating a black person because of their, maybe one day we will, but it won't happen. But in my lifetime, if you look at what happened since 1965 through now, things have gotten an awful lot better. And one thing they get going better and faster, and they keep progressing. So I think in 20 or 30 years, we're going to have a lot less of these conversations, and hopefully a lot less people on ham radio that are, have their heads up their asses. Anyway, that was what I wanted to talk about tonight. KB2's MVP.
You gotta learn to pay it forward.
Listen, it's ignorance. Well, you were talking about, like that guy that comes in here that, you know the guy I'm talking about, he's probably listening right now. The reason he's the way he is exactly the same reason everybody on 11 meters is the way they are. Because they can't join the conversation. They can't, there's no way in hell that guy here or on 11 can join in on a conversation like this because they just don't have what's upstairs. And the only way they can fight back is to try to cause hate and discontent, and that's always all over.
And they're haters, Ray. They're haters. Whether it's on radio, they probably walk to the store and they've got their hater buddies that they go to the store with and they talk bad about. We had this old guy they called Pop. He taught me a life lesson that I'll never forget. We were standing behind a fork truck one time in the garage at Cranesville Block, and every person that walked through the store, he would talk bad about. Every person. And I mean every single person. And he was just like this miserable old guy, and he would just talk crap about everybody that walked through that door. And I said to myself, I wonder what he says when I walk through the door. So guys like that, you just ignore. Same as the people here that cause hate and discontent. That's all they know. They don't know how to. They weren't brought up right. They weren't brought up these social creatures. Were just taught to hate. But let's not talk about those guys. But I just think it was interesting. I really wanted to hear what people had to say about this topic because to me, I think things are great. I think that they're not perfect for sure, but I think that I think they've gotten an awful lot better, and I'm very happy that they have.
I agree, but then what happens inevitably is that those same people we're talking about start taking this to the extreme. And in my opinion, the extreme is where a guy can go into a girl's bathroom or a girl can go into a guy's bathroom because they think they're a man or they think they're a woman. That's one step too far for me because that's just not right.
Yeah, I said that at the beginning. You probably missed it, but I didn't want to talk about the Bruce Jenners. Okay, the guys that says he's a girl because of whatever reason. There's crackpots too. So and I agree with that. It's there's always going to be that, but there's always going to be that, right? So we're not going to cure mental disease in overnight, but I just wanted to know the swing of it. How's it going? And I think the swing's going in the right direction. That's all I wanted. I wanted to find out what you guys thought.
You can let Randy know too, or let Ray know, Randy.
Now wait a second. I want to ask a quick question. Mark, are you a religious person? Is that what I heard you say? You're like a religious person?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I find that pretty interesting. Okay, so you can do at the world famous Toad Harbor Net to get together. You can do the what do they call that? You can say grace.
Well, I just sent Randy a text that you might find very interesting.
Okay, well, I'll have him read it to me on the phone.
And I would like him to share that with you if he would.
Okay, hang on. The phone's ringing. Maybe it's Randy.
Yeah, Mark, so you can be the Toad Harbor Net chaplain. Oh, I appreciate the honor, but no, how can I word this in such a way that you guys would understand? I cannot do that, but I am honored. Okay, so you got enough on your plate rather than to try to save all these souls. Yes, I am not a reverend. I don't wear pinky rings and cart it around in Pope-mobiles and command many in a congregation or anything like that. No. Don't. I'm not that good.
I was going to send you a check so you could buy another Gulfstream 5.
Wait a second. Here's the only thing I want to know, Mark. Are you ready?
Come on.
Can you walk on water?
Randy. Ray, let me ask you this. Ray, I'm here, okay?
All I know is when we're at the world-famous Toad Harbor get-together, there's a river there. So I expect to see you take a walk across it.
If I am one of who you're going to find out, and I can put up with you, I can more than walk on water. I can turn water into wine.
Oh, I like you're my new best friend.
Yeah, I was about to say, if they're there and the water turns to wine, then we know we got them. We're onto something. I think on a more serious note with the topic of conversation that Randy brought up, which is an excellent one, I think really what it comes down to the fact is that Randy kind of touched on it very well. There's always going to be people that need to hate something. They're either miserable in their own lives, or they're ignorant because they weren't taught properly, or they don't care and they don't want to know, or they don't want to accept things that are different from what they've been raised on, or other things. So there will always be a reason for someone to have a problem with someone else. And when we don't apply, now I'm not going to go all reverent here, but when we don't apply God's principles that he put forth in his word for us and how we should treat one another, we're always leaving room for the devil to take advantage of us and use us for his will. Yeah, well said. That antisocial or borderline sociopathy that you see people display, but that's really kind of the message that I've heard from a lot of the religious folks, is that it's not, you're not following the teachings of Jesus or Buddha or any of the other religious leaders, most of them anyway. I'm a firm believer in the golden rule. Treat other people the way that you want them to treat you, and we'll all get along just fine.
Yep. And I agree, and without getting in any religion, I don't want to bring any religion in, because if certain people don't want to talk about religion, and I get all that. Okay, I'm not going to talk about my religion, although I have a great deal of faith. But what I wanted to say is, it's just common decency. I know people that don't believe in God. I know a lot of people, and many of whom are in my family. They do not believe in God, and they don't believe that there could be a God. But yet they treat people like they're their brother or their sister. They treat people well because they were brought up the right way to treat people like that. You don't have to have, a lot of people say that God was invented to keep people from killing each other and going crazy, be the fear of not so much fear of God, but fear of the devil was to make people not go crazy and just run amok society. But a lot of people don't believe in God, and they treat people better than people that do believe in God. I mean, you know how many black jokes I heard from Pastor Ferguson from the First Baptist Church in Johnstown when he came up from down south? And we talk about inner city, Bob. I think in parts of the city, it's more accepted, blacks, whites, and all that. But deep inner city, I think there's an awful lot of black people that hate an awful lot of white people. And I know that's how it is in Syracuse, and it's too bad it's that way. But those people are still reliving the 50s. They still want to kill Whitey and all that. So you're always going to have those pockets. But those pockets, I think, probably nowadays with what Obama did, I think it's worse now than it was just before Obama. But I think it'll probably swing back. At least I hope it does. But okay. Anyway, that's enough of that. I'll let somebody else talk. But thank you guys for telling me what you thought, and I appreciate, Mark, the text that you sent me, and I still think you're an okay guy.
Well, thank you very much. I'd like you, even though you think, if you didn't think I was a nice guy, I'd still like you.
Yeah. I try to treat people the right way. You know, I get mad and carry on sometimes too, but I just why hate? Why be a bigot? Why come in here and QRM people just because you don't like us having a good time and you're not invited? And even the guy that's always QRMing, if you want to all of a sudden come in and start talking with us, feel free. We'll set you down the right path.
Pay it forward. You want to be an example for people, then you have to be that example yourself and do it yourself first.
That's right. So, Bob, it's your turn. What's the next topic?
Geez, we covered a lot of real estate here today. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, let me think about that one. Ionospheric dispersion.
Okay, Dennis, it's your turn. What do you got? Dennis left.
So Ray, are you still here? Oh, Ray must be doing a novena. Yeah, because he brought up Jerry Bull today, and I was wondering something happened with him. He caught something about Jerry Bull. He must have seen something, but I was just curious of how that happened to come into his day. Yeah, when he finally gets that house sold and all that taken care of, oh my God, he's going to be that's going to be the day of days. So this is a distracted Ray.
Yeah, he may be talking to Dennis on a 2-meter radio or something like that. Sometimes they do that. But Dave, are you there?
Yes, N1SAG, still here.
So you got nothing you want to say on this topic?
I want to know about the solar wind. Is it still blowing or did it stop?
Ooh, I could check that. I got to jump out for a second, guys, and get just a sandwich or something here. I'm getting hungry, and I'll be right back. KT Tootie.
Okay, and I'm going to go out in the kitchen and grab a glass of water. I'll be right back as well. KB2ZVP. Mark, you're in charge.
Oh, yeah. Drop the ball in my lap.
Oh, by the way, Mark, since you've changed antennas, that 2000's starting to sound a whole lot better. Sounds good.
Yeah, it's amazing how good it sounds. It can actually hear me.
Yeah, it did make a difference. No question about that. Although I was just getting used to stainless steel, so now I got to reorientate my train of thought towards copper. Now it sounds good.
Were you the one that was asking something about the ionosphere?
Yeah, about the solar wind, I was wondering. We were supposed to have had and I thought that things were kind of strange here last week. And guys on the air were saying something about a wicked solar storm. Just wondering if it's passed.
All right, I got a site here. Let me bring this up and see what they got to say about this. Well, we have 17 sunspots. The 10.7 centimeter solar radio flux is 71.
So 71 is not a high count, is it?
No, that's not a real high number. We have M-class and X-class solar flares are both at 1%, so we have low activity there. Let me get the next chart up here. It's a lot of information. I have to sort of kind of figure this all out here. Just give me a couple seconds here so I can scroll through this.
Yeah, no problem. And that's as long as that's all I was wondering, if it simmered down or not. But I didn't get on 20 meters today, and I was just wondering if 20 was back up any better. It's been real lousy. It's been kind of dead lately, N1SCG.
Okay, on the 1st of April, which was, yesterday, the day before, the coronal hole that seemed to be hanging around was facing Earth. So we might be getting some of the wind from that, but that's something that's been there now for several weeks. It takes a full week for the sun to rotate around in one rotation on its not its orbit, because it's not orbiting, but its rotation. So every time it goes, past our direction, we get a blast of solar garbage because of that, and that's probably what's been fooling with the ionosphere with us. But it's calming down. Let me see. The last X flare, which was a bad one, that's an 8.2, was on September the 10th of 2017. M flare, which is the class a little less than X, the last one that happened was an M1. That was on October the 20th of 2017. The last geomagnetic storm, which was a G1, which is like barely, that's really, really minimal. That was on the 17th of March on 2019. Number of spotless days in 2019 was 59, and the current stretch of spotless days is 2.
Yeah, wow, that's a lot of information, yeah. Very good, thanks for that, appreciate it.
So we're probably experiencing a little of the solar wind from the that hole.
Yeah, that's something, huh? That the way they can track all that. Yeah, very good. Okay, Mark, thank you.
Yep, no problem. Yeah, they got a lot of satellites out there, SOHO and stereoscopic one out there. I forget the name. It's got stereo in its title, and then they got that latest one, which is going to be really super close to it, like 1 million miles. That's getting really, really close to being at its closest approach. So they're going to get all kind of interesting information from that one if it doesn't get cooked first.
Yeah, well, yeah, I've been hearing a lot about, I guess India tested a rocket, and it was a defense missile, apparently, into the outside the atmosphere, up into space. And apparently they thought that it was low enough so that all the debris would re-enter and burn up on its way down, But apparently NASA tracked some debris that went higher into their low Earth orbit for the space station. So now they're worried about dodging fragments, I guess, which they say they can, I guess, but they're going kind of fast. I guess they can see it on radar. I don't know. Man, that's a dangerous little spot up there. They showed all the space junk on TV today. All the space junk that's in orbit around the Earth. It's unbelievable.
Oh, yeah, they made a real mess. India made a big boo-boo when they did that, and I'm sure some heads are rolling because of that. But, yeah, they made a real mess for everybody up there, and I'm sure that's not going to be the only impact, the one that they purposely made. There's probably going to be some other satellites that are going to be affected by that, and yeah, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be pulling, big time overtime, keeping their heads on the screens and making adjustments, because they just really made a real mess.
I returned. KB2ZVP.
All right, Bowles back in the court of the commander.
I just got my glass of water here and listening to you guys talk. That was pretty interesting stuff. I didn't realize that India shot up a rocket.
Yeah, you never really get the whole story, So they shot a rocket up, blew up a satellite, and it made a real mess. And now the space station's been put in danger, and they're probably crunching a bunch of numbers here. It's going to be a pretty jumpy next 24 to 48 hours for the space station, keeping their heads up on all these little projectiles flying around.
Oh, this was recently.
Yeah, I think it happened today. I might be wrong on that.
Yeah, I don't know the exact date. It might have been like over the weekend. I'm not sure. I just heard it for the first time on the news this morning, and I forgot what day they said they actually did this missile test. yeah, there's, if you see all this space junk that's floating around the globe, it's just unbelievable.
But wait, they tested out a missile and the missile hit a satellite?
Go explain it, Mark. Maybe Mark can't explain it, but as much as I know, they shot down one of their own satellites, apparently, just to test this missile. Apparently, that's my guess right now. I don't have all the accurate information, but when this explosion took place in outer space, the idea was to make sure that all the debris, the fragments, would come back to Earth and they burn up on their way in re-entry, so that there's no damage done. Well, the NASA's tracked some of the debris that went further out of the into orbit and into the same space that the space station orbits in. And I think he said they orbit at like 18,000 miles an hour. So imagine going through space at that speed and hitting a hunk of debris. It would certainly hurt. And when I say, gee.
Now I'm going to be Ray here for a second, and I'm going to be like, well, number one, if we were just going to let the satellite, is defunct, we're going to take the satellite and we're just going to let it burn up on its own re-entry, and it's no big deal. So why are we shooting down a satellite, and why are we shooting down a satellite with a missile unless something about the satellite was something they didn't want found out? So there's a lot of questions here that ought to be asked that nobody seems to be giving forth any answers about, other than it was just making a debris problem.
Well, I thought they were just testing their capability of like an anti, you know what I'm saying, to a defense missile, In other words, if they thought they had to shoot down somebody's satellite because they didn't like it, you know what I'm saying, they were just practicing. That's that's the drift that I took from the news bulletin. Over.
Right, and that's exactly what they want you to think. What they were really doing, I bet, had nothing to do with what they told you.
So you think they were into some, what do you call it, some bad behavior?
Oh, but no, India and Pakistan, bad behavior? I mean, that's never happened before, right?
No, they shot down the Indians shot down a Paki jet fighter because it came close into their airspace, I guess. And that's why Devin said they had to reroute his flight home all around Pakistan. Took him an extra hour or something to get to where his connection was. And then he had to rush through. But, yeah, what's wrong with it? They can't get along, huh?
I mean, what happened to the Gandhi moment?
Yeah.
They're not going to be happy until they turn that whole part of the world over there into a nuclear wasteland. And it touches right on what Randy was just discussing earlier. That's exactly, if it's not the color of your skin, it's your faith, it's what the way you were raised, and it's all about hate. And it said, look where it leads.
And it's about their religions, the difference in their religious beliefs, apparently. Hindu versus Muslim, I guess, but I don't know. Years ago, when I was a kid, I had friends, their father was a doctor in the Army, so they traveled all over the world, and mostly all through that part of the country. And they spent time in Pakistan and India and all those places, and they had tons of stuff to show for to all the artifacts they brought back with them. And used to tell me stories about what went on in these countries in real life, what they had found. And one of the stories was they had in Pakistan, they had a warrant out for this guy that was this outlaw, and it had to be captured, dead or alive. And nobody could find him. So one day, this guy comes down with the guy's head, and the authority said, "How'd you know where to find him?" He said, "It was easy. He's my father."
Yeah.
Yeah, well, this is society over there. I mean, this was in Pakistan. They were in Indonesia, China, Japan. They went on when they were kids. The father was like I said, an army doctor, specialized in tropical medicine, I think it was. And the stories you used to tell me were unbelievable.
The thing you got to ask yourself, what good, right? What good ever came from hate? What has hate ever has anybody ever accomplished by hating? Anything good? I mean, just tell me something good that came from hate. I think you'd have a hard time.
Randy, you're trying to be logical here, and that really doesn't happen when you're dealing with man. And so the illogical appears to be the common thought. So that's actually the answer to your question is it's man and his thinking.
Were you here earlier when we were talking about the whole thing?
Just a little while ago, I checked in, and I was hearing about the difference between Pakistan and the Indian, and they actually were one country at one time, but because of the difference in faith, Hindu and Muslim, they actually split, and Pakistan became Pakistan, and India as such. And I don't know in what year that occurred, but they used to be one.
Hello?
Yeah, right. Well, they've been battling for generations and generations and generations, and I doubt very much that much of it has to do with religion anymore. They just want to conquer each other. They just don't want to. They just want to. They just want to kill the other ones. They just don't like each other. So I doubt really the problem is the religion.
Well, that's a thought, but as you said, and I'm going to have to agree with it, is that they've been battling each other for so gosh darn long, family after family, generation after generation, that I think they might have lost sight of what they're actually battling for.
The Hatfields and McCoys, it's the same kind of scenario.
Let me get in 1 second. Joe, I was just watching Tucker Carlson on. I watched about 5 minutes of it, and Joe Biden's goose is totally cooked. He's totally cooked. They showed 30 pictures of him kissing women, restraining them, holding them by the back of the neck. He grabs them so they can't get away, and then he's kissing them all over the place, sniffing their hair and stuff. He's all done.
Yeah, he's wasteland. He's finished.
Get rid of him. The higher ups are trying to get rid of him because they don't want an old white man running.
Better believe it. And you know what? Bernie Sanders hasn't got a prayer for that reason right there.
Right. Well, they already said they're not doing anything with Bernie, but they're all thinking the fix is in for Bernie, just like it was with Hillary when Hillary was running against him. So it ought to be. Listen, in the Democratic Party, you got people who have no moral fiber or no moral values whatsoever. This ought to be the most interesting shootout amongst the Democratic runners that you're ever going to see in your life, because it is going to be down low and dirty.
Well, I'll bet you that they're going to somehow, some way, they're going to dump Bernie too.
Well, that's the game plan. Yeah, I agree. But it ought to be very interesting. Like I said, Trump was on TV and he was having a news conference, and he said, anything can happen. He goes, but I don't think I'm going to have a problem winning this next election.
Well, they're going to try to, run somebody that's progressive, a real progressive, probably a woman, probably a black woman. That in itself goes back to what I was bringing up earlier about prejudice and like that. They are... Because, I don't even know how to put it into words, but when you do that, you're showing that you're more prejudiced and you're trying not to be prejudiced, but it's a fact. I mean, it's a very strong prejudiced move to make.
Well, here, why do birds of a feather flock together?
There's just going to be a lot of flack for all these Democrats that are running. They are going to be incredible.
Weapon when used correctly.
He's just he's so stuck on himself. He's just thoroughly convinced that he has what it takes, and he has nothing.
Who's that?
O'Rourke or whatever his name is.
Oh yeah.
He's got nothing. He's just a waste of time. Trump will eat him up like he'll eat him up and spit him out.
Beto. Beto. He wants to make believe he's Spanish or something.
He's useless. Bernie, I'll tell you. And listen, you guys can tell me anything you want to tell me, but Bernie has the best chance of any of them. Number one, and number two is Bernie would have done much better against Trump than Hillary did.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Bernie may have honestly won that election.
Yeah, but you know what happened there.
Oh, yeah. Hillary put the kibosh to it. They used the dirty tricks like they did against Trump. But all I'm saying is Bernie had a much better shot at winning than Hillary.
Right now, he has more money than the rest of them.
Right, and that has all the rest of them terrified. Because Bernie doesn't have any high rollers giving him money. He's got people that give him $5, $10, $15, and he's still got more money.
And they're all having fun with other people's money. Isn't that something?
Yeah, Bernie's a madman. I mean, he's just simply a madman. If he ever got to be elected president, this country's dead meat.
Do you know that Bernie and his wife, when they got married, their honeymoon was in Russia?
Yeah, I know. He's a crazy man. He's totally, like I said, Trump will eat him up and spit him out too. I don't think he has a chance against Trump. I think he had a chance the first time against Trump, but now I don't think he's got any chance at all.
I know you're absolutely right there, so really, it is going to be interesting as heck to see what happens next.
Well, it's going to be fun to watch the Democrats just use all their dirty, stinking, lousy, no good, low-down tricks against each other. This ought to be really, really entertaining. N1 DVL.
You're right, Ray. This is K1RMA.
KB2ZVP.
N1SAG.
And KT2D, I'm back.
You guys, make sure you keep watching Fox News, anything about Israel, because Mike's over there wearing his Toad Harbor T-shirt, just trying to get in front of a camera.
You better watch out he doesn't catch a missile the wrong way.
I can't believe he went over there. I'm just amazed.
Yeah, he is. He's over there now.
I would have let him borrow a flak jacket.
Whatever possessed him to go to Israel? Did he ever tell you?
Mike's a pretty religious guy, and I think that's probably a big part of the reason why he's over there.
Now, is he Jewish?
No.
Okay, well, whatever. I don't know. That's kind of amazing to me.
His last name's Murray.
Oh,
Ray,
that sounds like a Jewish name,
it would
isn't
be
it?
me.
I heard he was buddies with Netanyahu when he was putting up some party lights at the Netanyahu's place.
If he's Christian, it's because of the coming holiday, Easter. You know why, Ray?
No, I don't.
Because I'm cheap.
Couldn't understand you. Because why?
Because I'm cheap.
He didn't get the first part. Some of you were telling.
Well, I certainly know you wouldn't go to Israel.
Oh, the Jewish part. I got it.
Yeah, because I'm cheap.
Mary had a little lamb.
And why wouldn't I go to Israel, Ray?
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't go. He went alone. I mean, he just hopped on a plane all by himself and went to Israel. I thought that's kind of bold.
Well, the way the world is over there right now, its current political climate, I think it's probably a little risky for any American to be over there, alone or otherwise.
Well, if he gets kidnapped by Hamas, Randy, get your stuff and we'll go get him.
Well, he might. I mean, as long as they don't have snapping turtles over there, he'd be okay.
I don't think they have turtles over there at all.
Maybe tortoises.
Geez, I hope they'd ever listen to us on the Toad Harbor Net, because now I know how they're going to torture him and make him talk.
Yeah, they'd have to really go out of their way to find one.
A bite on a Winky from the snapping turtle wouldn't be pleasant.
Yeah, I guess not.
You were talking about Bernie, and this is KT2D. I remember I was reading an excerpt of an interview, or it was a piece, and it was one of the Democrats. I want to say it was Barney Frank, and whatever you think of Barney Frank, but the point of it was somebody who was on Bernie's side of the aisle. He made the comment that there has never been one piece of legislation that has Bernie's name on it. And he's introduced a lot, but they've never passed. He said the primary reason of that is one thing about Bernie is he believes in what he believes in. He has strong convictions, but he has a pathological inability to compromise and work with a committee. And I think that's kind of interesting. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Well, I don't think Bernie's going to be the president. I really find that hard to believe. I can't believe that there's enough people in this country that would vote for him.
Yeah, a lot of young people would, but they usually haven't waken up by the time the polls close, so that's a good thing.
Exactly.
I don't think the Democrats, as a group, as a whole, would want him to represent them, especially if he's that rigid. So they would probably, have him bumped off or something before that happened.
They'll do like what Hillary did, because they make their own rules. Delegates, and it isn't going their way, they just play that card in the very end. And then whine when they lose because of the electoral college. They play that card to get their it's just. But I think that's the way they'll do it, because their nomination process is really rigged. They can pretty much figure out who they want, and it doesn't matter what delegates vote. KXP.
Hey, Tom.
Well, it's about time. Were you at the airport polishing your plane?
No, sure wasn't.
because on the internet, I was looking there. Did President Trump do away with daylight standard time? That it's all now daylight savings time?
I didn't hear anything about it.
I don't know. I see on the internet that this Cortez lady wants to do away with daylight savings time. She says the Earth is warm enough as it is that we don't need another hour of daylight.
Well, she's got a good point there.
Yeah, she sure does.
Good Lord Almighty.
Now, is that a joke, or did she really say that?
Hey, it's on the internet. It's got to be true.
Come on, Raymond.
Yeah, well, I believe she's dumb enough to say it, but it's hard to believe.
Blondes are telling their kind of jokes now.
Almost sounds like it would have come from Yogi Berra.
And just think, she's going to make $170,000 a year for life and a pension and never ever have to work again.
Is that what they get for one term in the House?
You got it. That's what the internet said.
No, I've heard that a number of places. Boy, that really, yike.
Yeah, isn't that disgusting?
Hey, Ray, I forgot to ask you, what made you ask about Jerry Bull earlier? I meant to ask you and I got distracted.
Say, I didn't get the gist of what you were saying. Say it again.
Yeah, you asked about Jerry Bull earlier. I was just curious how you happened to come across his name.
It was on the show about the harp gun or whatever, and once I realized, I mean, I've seen it before, and I realized that he was, I wasn't sure if he was the inventor of that sabot type thing like they use on the Abrams tank, but I was kind of thinking, that's why I asked you about the Germans. Did the Germans invent it, or did he? So if he invented it, I mean, essentially the gun on the tank is a Bull invention.
Oh, yeah, the sabot. No, the Germans actually had that way back. They actually had stuff around there. They actually had tape of bore, and they had sabots, and the Brits did as well. So that was already established before Jerry Bull came along. He applied it to artillery projectiles. Okay, got it. Thanks.
I mean, they said on that harp gun, the maximum pressure that they could generate was 50,000 psi, and the way it seemed, if they went any higher than that, the gun would explode.
Yeah, he was using, 16-inch naval guns, and that's pretty close to the peak, what they call the permissible maximum pressure. You could probably exceed that once or twice, but your fatigue life goes way down. So that was the real trick, getting those velocities by with keeping the pressure down to the cannon safe pusher. Yep, he was a sharp guy.
Starting to get a little warm out here again.
7 minutes to the hour.
I don't know. I didn't think it was that warm outside, but my radio room's awful warm. This amplifier, in real cold weather, it doesn't really heat up. Even the big amp, the high heat amp doesn't really make it that hot up here. But when it's just a little bit warm outside, this amp really pours a lot of heat into this room.
You up on a top floor, right?
Yep, this is the attic, top floor.
Degrees, but the humidity must be way up. That's why it feels warmer.
My neighbor didn't show up in here, did he?
Who?
My neighbor, Kilo Bravo 3 Whiskey Echo Alpha. He didn't show up, did he?
I don't believe so.
Okay. He stopped over today and he was asking about a 7300. I guess he's going to take the plunge and buy a 7300.
Well, it's a hell of a radio for the amount of money, that's for sure.
That's what I told him. I told him to talk to you guys here, that you could answer anything you wanted to know.
I was thinking for this summer, that solid state amp from Palstar would really be the hot setup because that would make a hell of a lot less heat, no filaments.
Yeah, I guess he's looking at an AL80B.
Yeah, that's not my idea of a very great amplifier. He should. There's a lot of other amps he should buy before that. Matter of fact, what does an AL80B cost new? $1,500?
Around there, $1,500-$1,600.
Yeah, really. If he's going to go, if I was him, I'd buy the 7300 if he wants to get a good radio cheap. And then what I would do is I'd buy a good used amp like one of those ones that Mark has or Bruce has. You can buy them for like $350. Get one of those. That's a great amp for that money. And then save his money and buy the damn solid state amp. I mean, if you're going to go out and buy a new amp today, I really think you should buy the Palstar. Even me. I mean, if you have the 32 or 3300 it's going to take, buy the Palstar. If not, just buy an old cheap amp that works good. Matter of fact, even consider my what do you call it, Sigma 3000D. I might sell that, and then I'll buy the Palstar.
Yeah, just talk to him. He wants a new station.
Well, okay, if he wants a new station, then I would not buy that AL80B. That's not a great amp. I don't think it is.
That's what I've been using since I've been on here.
I understand that, and they're an okay amp, but I just wouldn't spend $1,500 on one. I'd buy an older. I'd buy one of those. Try to get a nice clean. What do you call it? That. What's that amp you have, Mark? What's that thing called? It has 4 572s in it. That's the amp I would buy. If I want something cheap and easy to use, that's it. I would never buy that AL80B. Never.
Did you hear me right?
Yeah, no, I didn't hear you. What model do you have?
The MLA 2500B.
Yeah, and again, I wouldn't even buy that because that's right. That's got those old tubes in it. What model's got the 572s in it?
I think you're talking about the Clipperton L.
Right. Yeah, that's the one Randy bought for Bruce, and Bruce has 2 Clipperton Ls. That's the one I would buy, is a Clipperton L. Buy them for like $350, and they'll give you 1,000 watts.
Hopefully he was listening in there.
Either buy an old amp or buy the solid state from Palstar. One or the other. a really, really great amp, if you could ever find one, would be a single-tube Commander. That's, in all honesty, I think that's the best amp I ever owned for low bands.
What tube does it have? And that's a 1-1er, right?
Yep, 3 CX800A7. Single tube. That's just a really, really nice amp.
So far, I haven't had any problems with mine since that one night it was acting a little goofy. Since then.
Right, and you haven't taken it apart and cleaned it up and fixed it yet.
No, not yet.
You're a little lax there, aren't you?
Got a little bit of much on the plate right now, Ray. We got a big job contract coming up with the York Memorial Hospital they're building. We were down there again for another full day, and we found a bunch more windows that weren't on the plan that have to be brought to their attention, and divider curtains that had to be measured. And yeah, there's a lot of work that's coming up here in the next month.
Well, that's excellent. You'll have plenty of money to buy your new rig.
And then some.
Well, then let's go. Want me to order it up for you? I'll call my pals up at HRO.
No, but you said you were going to do 50%.
No. Now, you see, there you go. Your ears are plugged, or your receiver there's not working well. I said I was going to give you 50 cents.
Oh, I caught the cent part. I thought it was per cent, but 50 cents. Okay.
Yeah, 50 cent. 50 cent.
I got you.
Why don't you got a computer, go online and make yourself a GoFundMe page and just tell everybody to throw in 50 cents.
Come on, Ray, you can do better than 50 cents.
No, I'm afraid that's my limit.
But you're rich.
Rich? No, I'm not rich. Rich is, 10 or 15 mil. I'm not in that category.
Heck, that isn't even rich anymore.
Well, that makes me a pauper. I'm a pauper.
Just to retire for a normal retirement anymore is $1 million right there.
Yeah, just about $1 million would do work about well.
To keep yourself normal at that age costs you almost $1 million a year. And it's not going to get any better.
Everything keeps going up at the cost of living allowance.
Well, that's the problem you get when you have a fiat currency. You eventually get rapid inflation, and look at Zimbabwe. You want to see what happens with fiat currencies? Just take a look at Zimbabwe.
Venezuela, another one.
No, Venezuela was just that's socialism gone wrong. Zimbabwe was fiat currency gone wrong.
That's what
Socialism
right
always goes wrong.
That's what we're under right now. They took all the value out of the coinage, and we're dealing with putting the value on a piece of paper.
Right. Well, start buying silver. That's what my buddy tells me to buy. Personally, I think gold's probably better, but silver will also work.
You know what I got to say about that, Ray? When things really get bad, you can't eat silver or gold.
That's right. So if you see anything on the horizon, I'm calling up Wise there and ordering $10,000 worth of dried food, and I'll buy some more ammo, buy another 5, 10, 15,000 rounds of ammo. That's going to be worth a fortune.
You know what else would be a good investment, Ray?
It's funny, Gary down there, Gary in North Carolina, and he's no dummy. He always tells me, buy booze.
Oh, yeah. The alcoholics will definitely, they'll pay just about anything.
You know what else is a good investment, Ray?
Coffee.
Bic lighters.
Bic lighters? I never thought of that.
Think about it.
Yeah, you can just walk down a city street in 4 hours. You can probably pick up about 16 of them.
But do they work?
It's a 50-50. It's better than gambling.
I figure everything goes down, you're going to need heat. And how do you start a fire? A Bic lighter.
Yeah, I think the cave guys figured that out before Bic.
So I'll order 10,000 Bic, tons of ammo, and lots of Wise food. And I've got a well and a generator, so I need the little 500 gallons of gasoline, and I can sell water for $1 a gallon.
So you're not going to help anybody out, Ray, when things get real bad? You're just going to hoard it all to yourself and shoot anybody that needs help?
No, they'll just come and take it from them.
They'll try to take it from me.
You're going to go out with both guns blazing?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, they'd be better off to attack the what do you call it, the White House than me.
I love that mentality.
I tell you, a flamethrower can be a real good deterrent as well.
Yeah, that's true. A nice flamethrower. That's a good idea. I know a guy that actually owns a flamethrower. He actually owns one, and it's legal. He got paperwork. He's the only guy that. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure he's about the only guy in the country that has a legitimate flamethrower.
Yeah, you can get them.
Right. Well, this guy did have one. I don't know if he still has it, but that is a good little weapon.
And all you have to do is threaten to use it, like for crowd control. You know, you wet them down with that thickened fuel, stand there with the igniter burning, and okay, it's your move, mate.
Hey, you might have some knowledge of this. You were into guns when they made a procurement for shotguns over in the Mideast. They had Benelli make them a dual action shotgun. It was a kinetically operated plus gas operated shotgun. Now the Benelli, in my opinion, is the finest shotgun ever made. It's a kinetic action shotgun. I have one. It's the fastest shotgun there is. There's that guy on TV. You ever see him? He hand throws 10 clay pigeons, and he hits them all in the air with that Benelli semi-automatic. Have you ever seen him do it?
They got them all with one shot.
I don't think I've seen that particular one. I've seen him do a lot of stuff where he throws stuff up and he hip shoots them all, if it's the same guy.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Well, he can hand throw 10. He can hit 10 with the Benelli semi-auto, and he can hit 8 with a pump shotgun. He says, for those of you who like pumps, he said, I'm usually pretty good with this too. And he throws 8, and he gets 8 of them in the air with a pump shotgun. So the guy's really great. But that Benelli is just an incredible gun, and yet the military had to screw it up by insisting that they not only do they make it kinetic action, they have to have gas operated at the same time. So, that makes the gun a lot heavier, a lot more complex. And to me, that was the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. Do you happen to know anything about what I'm talking about?
I know a lot about stupid and dumb and senseless procurement actions and contracting and procurement requirements, but that particular one I do not have any knowledge of.
Because the Benelli M1 that I have is the lightest 3-inch semi-automatic shotgun made. It is like a feather. It is really, really light, and it's just a magnificent gun, absolutely magnificent. Now, if you're dumb, and I tried this because, well, we all know how smart Ray is, and I did it as a test. I was shooting it one day, and I said, I'm going to see if I can make this fail to function. So what I did is I faced, let's say I'm facing south, and I take the gun with both hands, and I hold it out in front of me with my arm slightly bent, just a little bit, and I pull the trigger and let my arms take up all the recoil, and the gun did not eject the shell.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, so I'm wondering if that's why they wanted the gas backup, or I don't know, but yeah, so the gun has to be held, or the gun recoil has to be limited. So what you're doing is with that free recoil, you're basically giving it. Yeah, it won't. Interesting.
He limp-wristed it.
Right, but if you hold it at all, I mean, even if no matter what you do to it, it functions with no problem. But if you intentionally try to trick it, you can. But again, it's so lightweight. It's just such a magnificent gun. It's the nicest shotgun I've ever seen in my life.
I'll stick with an A5 Browning.
That's a really heavy gun.
I like my 1187.
That's even heavier. That gun is so heavy, it's ridiculous.
What is?
The 1187. That gun weighs 11 pounds.
11 pounds? That's whatever. I mean, if you're a man like Tom and I, it's not a big deal.
Right, we'll try carrying it 20 miles in the woods. My Benelli weighs probably 6.5 or 7 pounds. I'd say it weighs 7 pounds. It's amazing how light it is. Because I looked at one of those 1100s and I hefted it up and I said, you got to be kidding me. This thing feels like it's got lead bars in it or something. I mean, it's just so heavy, it's crazy. And they're just as expensive.
I don't think it weighs 11 pounds, but I want to see you carry your Benelli 20 miles in the woods.
Well, I'd much rather carry the Benelli than that thing, and the Benelli is a much better balanced gun. I mean, it is just trust me when I tell you that 1187, when you pull it up to your shoulder, it doesn't point right. It's just a screwed up gun. It is. That the Benelli is just amazing. The Benelli's got like they call them ghost ring sights, but they got like the military. The back's got the angled heavy steel, and it's got a peep sight on the back, and in the front's got the same thing on the barrel. It's just, trust me when I tell you, I know guns. It is the finest shotgun I have ever seen, period. Ever.
What have you shot with it?
Nothing. Just shot it at the range a bunch of times to get the feel of it. And I'm going to tell you an interesting story. Many years ago, probably 15, 18 years ago, there was an article in the NRA magazine, the magazine you get from the NRA, and it said Heckler and Koch is coming out with a new shotgun, and it explained all about it. And I brought it to my gun guy, and I said, "You see this gun? I want you to order me one." And the guy says, "Okay." He says, "Let me write it all down." He says, "Okay, I'll order it." And he calls me up after about 2 or 3 weeks, and he goes, "Ray, I called every distributor I have, and nobody knows anything about that gun. They never made it." So I go to another place, the other place, go in the other direction, and I give him the same thing, and he goes crazy looking for it, and he can't find it either. He goes, and this went for the course of a whole year, because I figured, well, they didn't start making it yet. So after a year, both guys couldn't find it at all. Now, don't forget, Heckler and Koch, right? Okay, now, one day I go up there and I'm checking with the guy up in Belchertown, and he says to me, "Do you have an open mind?" I said, "Yes." And he goes, "Then let me show you a really nice shotgun." And he hands me this shotgun, which is the Spinelli M1. And I said, "Oh my God, this is magnificent, absolutely incredible. I've got to have it." He said, "There's only one thing wrong with that gun." And I said, "What?" He said, "It's the price. They're expensive." I said, "I don't care. How much?" She says, $850. I said, I'll take it. And I said, I don't have the money with me. I'll be back tomorrow with $850. Do not sell this gun. Okay, so I buy the gun, and I'm the happiest guy in the world. It's the most beautiful shotgun I've ever seen. 10 years go by. 10 years go by, and guess what? That Benelli is made by Heckler & Koch, and that is the gun that they were advertising years before in the magazine, but they changed the name. It came out under the Benelli name because one company bought the other one.
See, I knew you were rich.
Well, let's put it this way. When it comes to a fine firearm, you don't cut corners.
So I'm looking at a bunch of forums here about between the Benelli and the 1187. It's an M1 or an M2?
Mine's an M1.
And yeah, there's as much as I like my Benelli, I don't think I would get rid of a well-functioning 1187 for an M1. My M1 is an okay gun, but if you don't stay on top of it, it jams. It's not reliable. My 1187 has never failed me. In a gunfight, I'm grabbing the 1187 every single time.
Well, I have a pretty good eye for mechanical things, okay? I'm pretty good with mechanical stuff. And I'm telling you, that gun is the most foolproof shotgun ever made. And the only reason that gun could ever jam is the guy has never serviced it. And that's it. And here's my backup, Jack. Jack is sold guns. You know, he worked in a gun store a major portion of his life, and he knows guns. And Jack has one of those guns. And I asked him, I said, has it ever failed? He goes, well, I shot it, a skeeter, whatever. He goes, yeah, after thousands of rounds, it finally one day at the range, it jammed. And I said, well, what was wrong with it? He goes, I don't know. He said, all I did is open it up, spray it with WD-40, and it went right on. And he said, I've never taken it apart or cleaned it or anything. So that's it. Yeah, it'll shoot, 12,000 rounds, and then it'll start to jam. But the thing is, like any gun, every 4 or 5 years, you got to take it apart and re-lube it.
Every 4 or 5 years?
Well, in this case, yeah, 4 or 5 years, because, the gun's not being shot. But the point is, if you look at the way the gun works, it's flawless. It cannot fail. It can't fail. The only way it can fail is if it's dry as a bone. There's no lubricant in it, or it's got water in it, and it's got rusty, or it's just got, 5,000 rounds through it. Then it can fail. But basically, I'm telling you, the gun can't fail. It's just impossible. It's the finest made gun I've ever seen in my life. And I'm not exaggerating. It's such a work of art that you'd have to see one to even have the slightest idea what I'm talking about. I've looked at that 1100. I thought it was the biggest piece of crap I've ever seen. The day I looked at it, I held it. It's heavy as hell. It's not balanced right. It doesn't go where you point it. It's just a lousy gun.
Randy, you familiar with the A5?
No,
what
Ray keeps talking about 1100.
What did you say, A5?
1187. Anyway, there's like 4 articles here, or 4 different sites. This is directly talking about different guns. And every one of them talk about the Benelli not being reliable in the cold weather.
Listen, you and I should be the first person on the planet to say they're probably 100% right. They used Hops gun oil on it, and the stuff freezes solid anything below like 10 or 15 degrees. It turns into bowling ball rubber. So I'm sure they're 100% correct. But, a normal human being like us lubes the thing with either a super low temperature grease, or they lube it with a Mobil 1 or something like that.
Well, yeah, they're not having problems with the Remingtons, though. But this guy here said, I no longer own the 1100 or 1187. I've got a couple of 870s and 2 Benelli M1s. Wow, I think the Remingtons are good auto loaders. I like the Benelli much better for my uses. So there's one guy that agrees with you.
Look, just like you know, if I was asking you about a block plan or anything mechanical, I'd have a tendency to believe you. You believe what I'm telling you. If you're going to go to battle with that gun, you take it all apart, you clean all the parts, you lube them with the proper lube, and it's probably going to shoot 1,500 or 2,000 rounds before you even have to think about it.
Going to battle. I'm a lover, not a fighter.
Yeah, I was going to say, hang on, guys, I got to take my gun apart and lube it before we get into this battle. But no, it's just, I mean, look, there's millions of hunters out there that use these 1187s, and I think that they're all pretty happy with them.
There's millions of radio people out here that have Kenwood T2000s, and they're happy with them too. And they're just as happy with their T2000 as those guys are with the 1100 Remingtons, but they just don't know any better. It's that simple. It really is, and that's just the way things are. Now listen, I had a single shot 22 I bought back 40 years ago, probably 50 years ago. I probably bought it in the early 70s. I always wanted I bought a Marlin Micro Groove single shot, and through the years I modified it and I lightened up the trigger pull on it and really made it nice. But that gun would never fire when it was below, if the temperature was below, say, 20 degrees, the gun just wouldn't fire. It would not fire. And I screwed around with it and screwed around with it and screwed around with it. And what it came down to was real simple, because this happened here in this house. And what I did was I took some Hops gun oil, and I made a little tiny pocket in some aluminum foil, and I hit it with that freeze mist, okay? And, that's probably 60 below zero. And when that Hops gun oil freezes, you could put it on the table and hit it with a hammer, and it would put a dent in the wood. It literally wouldn't, it would be like hitting a piece of solid bowling ball rubber. And it's solid as a rock when it's cold like that. So then what I did is I took what the hell else was it? I took some other gun lubricant. I believe it was that break-free CLP, and I froze that to 60 below zero, and that turned into the consistency of petroleum jelly. It wasn't solid by any means, and it was still fairly pliable, but it had the consistency of petroleum jelly. And then I took Mobile One, and I hit it with the same test, and it was liquid as it would be at, say, 50 degrees. It didn't freeze at all. So, when you're in really cold temperatures, you got to watch your lubricant, right? Bob, are you listening to this? You must know a lot about this. What does military use for lubricants when the temperature's below zero?
When it gets real cold, you go synthetic.
Right, well, yeah, anything, yeah, that's it, synthetic. Now, don't forget, Mobile One that I was using back then was probably 530. Now you can buy 0W20, and I think they even make a 0W0 or 0W5 or something. So, you could use that, and you're all set.
Yeah, they even have minus numbers now for these. A lot of these engines have such tight tolerances and everything, but yeah, because you mentioned in CLP, we go through a lot of that stuff. For us, it's mostly the machine guns, and with the large caliber cannons, there's enough spring force that you can work, but in Germany, for our machine guns, we used to use 10 weight oil, and that would work, and if it was hot weather, we'd go to 30 weight, but when it gets real cold, they just gum up, and for the small arms, you really need to go with stuff that's very thin and isn't gonna thicken up. So it wasn't CLP. There was some of the stuff we were using. It used to be LSD lubrication. Small arms was okay in warm weather, but got to go synthetic. When you start dropping below 10 below, you got to go to something very thin and synthetic usually.
Well, that new motor oil, 0W20 or 0W0 or whatever that is, that would work fine. That's going to flow at 60 below zero. You wouldn't have any problems with that at all.
Hey, Ray.
Yeah.
Yeah, are you familiar with Tri-Flow?
I've heard about it. I've never used it, but I've heard people say it's good.
Yeah, you guys doubled.
Yes, I'm familiar with it, but I've never used it.
Yeah, don't. That dries out and it gets real dummy, and it doesn't have to be cold out for that.
Well, usually I use Mobile One. If I was going to lube a gun and just go out and, for the next week or two do battle, I'd probably use Mobile One on it.
He's got a lot of following. There's a couple of Border Patrol agents talking about their 870s. You got to remember these are guys that use these guns for hunting and out for duck hunts and boar hunting and all that stuff, Ray. So these guys are not guys that have just shot at targets. These guys are using these guns out in the field.
An 870, I have two of them. An 870 is a great all-around shotgun. It really is. It's a great gun. But I'll tell you what, if you hold an 870 in your arms, or fire an 870 and then fire the Benelli, it's like the difference between it's like the difference between a Yaesu 101 and a Kenwood 890. There's that much difference between them. I mean, the 870 is a good old-time, very rugged, old-school type gun. And it works, and there's nothing wrong with it. But the Benelli is just the finest. The machine work, the way it operates when you pull the bolt back, it's so smooth. It's like a Beretta. It's like the difference between a Beretta and a Taurus. Taurus and Beretta, they made identical guns. The Beretta 9mm or the 40 caliber Beretta 94, 96. Taurus made the exact same gun. If you put them on the table, you can't tell them apart. They were allegedly made on the same machines and everything. Pull the slide back on a Taurus and work it, and pull the slide back on a Beretta and work it, and the difference is phenomenal. You just can't believe that they could have two identical weapons, and one works so smooth and it glides, and the other one feels like it's got sand in it. And that's the difference between an 870 and the Benelli.
Well, yeah, I'm sure it's silky smooth and all those beautiful things. It probably feels good in your hands and it's nice and light. But I'm looking at two little girls here, by the way, shooting 870s or 1187s, and these young girls aren't having any trouble carrying this gun around and shooting it.
Well, they're too heavy for me. I don't like a heavy gun. I'd rather have a gun that weighs 3 pounds than one that weighs 6 pounds. I can tell you that right now. My favorite 22 is a nylon 66, nylon 77. They weigh 4.5 pounds. They're the greatest 22 ever made.
This guy's teaching his daughters. The one's about 12 years old, about knocked her backwards, but she there's some good videos here.
Yeah, and then there's the one in Mass here where they gave the kid an Uzi, a 9-year-old kid an Uzi, and they had a 15-year-old kid watching him, and he pulled the trigger and the gun just climbed right back over and shot him in the head and killed him.
Yeah, we're not watching that video. We're watching their speed shooting between the Benelli and 1187. 1187 beats it by 1/10 of a second.
Boy, I don't know how.
Well, you just pull the trigger fast. 6 shots. They'll both shoot 6 shots.
Hey, Ray, does your Benelli have a bump stock?
No. That bump stock is the dumbest thing I ever saw. You know what? I wouldn't own one, even if they weren't illegal. And why the federal government ever decided to allow those to be sold as legal is totally beyond me. That's the dumbest thing I ever saw.
Just something else they can tell you that you can't do.
Right, but that is kind of an absurd thing. You know, I'm a gun person, and I don't even agree with it.
Man, there's a lot of nice shotguns out there. Holy cow. You ought to see some of these tactical guns. They are just gorgeous.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you ever have a chance, pick up a Benelli and just heft it up to your shoulder, and you'll understand why I'm saying what I'm saying. It's just incredible. It just goes right. It's like, you know what it is? It's like an old 45 auto pistol. Take any 45 auto, cock it, hold it up, you know, sight through it, and then take any other gun and do the same thing, and they just don't point the same way.
Grip angle.
Whatever it is, even the Beretta's close, but it's still no cigar. Any 45, just wherever you point it, you don't even need sights. You just point it, and it's right on target.
Randy, you get a chance, look at the TriStar shotguns. Those are reasonable, and they're nice. They're made in Turkey.
TriStar?
TriStar, yeah.
They're made in Turkey?
Oh, yeah.
N1 DVL.
KC3 KXB.
Yeah, KB2ZVP.
KT2D.
I'm going to pull the plug. See you guys later. 73 KB2ZVP.
Good night, Randy. Y'all rest easy now. 73.
Hey, good night, Randy. Good talking to you.
Good night.
Bug out here myself, guys. I had an early call this morning. I'm starting to fade, but I enjoyed it. And interesting hearing about the shotguns, because a lot of those guns I am not familiar with.
Well, Randy, if you're still there, don't forget, call your buddy tomorrow and get the goods, okay?
Yeah, I'd like to hear about that somehow.
Well, I had a connection where I did hear about it from the same source. Okay, exactly the same deal. Even better than Randy's guy, and the word was they're here and they're real.
Yeah, I've heard that from a number of places, and yeah, interesting. I would sure like to know what the real skinny is on that. Anyway, good night, guys. I'll catch you tomorrow.
Well, this was from an astronaut, or a current astronaut, and that's the scuttlebutt I got. They're here and they are real, and they've been visiting Earth for forever.
What's that? Your aliens?
Yes.
They're crossing that southern border every day.
Yeah, but those aren't the aliens that are driving the high-performance spaceships. You know, I want to be able to get to the moon in, 5 or 6 minutes.
You're going to have to wormhole it.
You actually got taken out by a lightning static. Go ahead.
I said you're going to have to wormhole it to get there in 5 or 6 minutes.
No, not really. It's the moon's 230,000 miles. So shit, if you're hitting, let's see, if you're hitting 186,000 miles a second is the speed of light. So let's say you're hitting 20,000 miles a second. Not even a sweat, and you'll be there in 20, 40, 68, 100. You'll be there 12 or 13 seconds.
Just right.
Yeah, and you won't age as much.
That's true. But any of these craft that can do the kind of performance things that people see them do inside the atmosphere, just imagine when they're outside the atmosphere how much faster they're going to go. And I mean, they're going to go a hell of a lot faster. What would the range of that cannon on the M1 be out in space? It would you'd be able to shoot it probably from here to the moon.
Oh, it would be unlimited once you launched. It would boost at that velocity, and you'd come out a little faster too, because you don't have to push the column of air in front of the bullet out of the tube, and that's not insignificant.
Does anybody know how much that cost you in velocity?
Yeah, somebody's figured it out, and by the way, your buddy Jerry Bull figured that out, especially with the double 16 and the 51-foot extension of the gun. So what he did was he put a diaphragm over the muzzle and drew a vacuum out, so he didn't have to push that column of air out, and it got him an extra 10 kilometers of altitude.
Yeah, well, I will certainly believe that, because that column of air working against the 5,000 foot per second velocity, it's almost like you're trying to push water out of the way.
Yeah, it basically gives you essentially a heavier projectile in bore, and so you're burning powder to push that air out of there.
I'm sure. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that makes quite a difference in the velocity. I imagine that could probably make 300-400 feet a second with no problem.
Well, I'll tell you, tomorrow when I get in, we'll put it in one of the guys have probably done it, and I know the guys at now it's ARL, but the Ballistics Research Lab in Aberdeen, because they're the ones that do all the validation for armor penetrators in different armors. And so they need guns that are a little bit longer. They're test guns, and so I'm wondering if they pull it up. But anyway, we've got interior ballistic codes that'll. Yeah, I'll see what that'll do. It'll be interesting. I should have an answer tomorrow night.
Hey, Ray.
Yes, Tom, go ahead.
You would like to what just flew over here. There was 3 of them. Ohio Air National Guard, they generally fly over here with their C-130s, and we just had 3 of them go over.
Yeah, during the Gulf War, my God, they go right over my house. They leave Westover Field, which is 10 miles away, and they climb out directly straight out, and they go right over my house. And some nights there must have been 20 or 30 of them. And they're fully loaded, even in a lot of times they're the C-130s, a lot of times they're the C-5As. And they are fully loaded, because you can hear those engines. They're making big power because they're on the climb out.
Roger, I'll tell you, these guys here were low. They rattled the windows.
Oh, definitely. Hey, have you ever walked through a C-5A?
Only at an air show.
Yeah, well, I'm saying you really got to walk through one of those to appreciate an airplane. Wow, that's an incredible airplane. Just think, you could take your plane off inside a C-5A and land inside it.
You're right.
Does your thing have an electric start? It does, right?
Oh, certainly does.
And the old engine had it too?
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever prop started an engine?
No.
Yeah, I've seen that done a couple of times with our Tri-Pacer. You get out there and you prop it. Oh my God, that's ballsy. I wouldn't want to do it.
That chops something off you don't want to lose.
Yeah, no kidding. I've seen it done, and boy, I'll tell you, I wouldn't do it. I'd buy a new That's the one time I'd buy a new battery.
Yeah, the battery I bought is that fiberglass matte battery. That way, if you crash or tip over, you're not going to leak battery acid all over you.
Yeah, and there's new batteries out now that are much lighter. They have the same power, and they weigh about, 1/4 or 1/5 what a regular lead-acid battery weighs.
Not only that, with this here Kawasaki engine, I got a recoil start on it in front of the instrument panel. Up underneath, there's a D-ring where you could you can crank it over while you're in the air, with that pull start.
Boy, I don't know. How many cc's is it?
440.
Yeah, well, my quad is 421, and I'll tell you what, it is a bear to start. You have a shot. You have a shot at starting it if it's warm, but if it's cold, no way. You just can't pull it. It doesn't have a compression release. Does that thing have a compression release?
I don't know, but I could pull the starter and that turned the prop over.
Oh, that's amazing. Like I said, if the engine's warmed up, and especially if the thing stalled at altitude, you put the plane into a dive, and then the wind's trying to turn the prop, and you could probably pull it over and would very, very easily.
Yeah, and I see that one there with that small engine and that the one lunger. They have they don't have a Magnum redrive on it the way I do it. They have a gearbox.
Well, what's the difference?
There's quite a bit of weight difference, and I'd be afraid of that. You could lose a bearing in it or so. Well, and there's 5 belts on my Magnum redrive.
Right, but, the thing is, have you ever made a dead stick landing with your plane?
No.
Well, read Chuck Yeager's book, man. That's something you probably should practice. Because, if the engine quits working and you're coming down, you're just going to have to do it.
Yeah, just glide her down.
Right, well, that's the whole secret. You have to find a place to do it.
Around here, I live in the country. There's cow pastures all over, Ray.
Yeah, but the problem is you put those little wheels into a soft cow pasture, and that thing's just going to tip right over.
Well, you could almost say our airstrip over there. It's a grass strip. You could say that's a cow pasture.
Yeah, true. Yeah, as long grass is fine, but a real cow pasture probably be okay. But like a field that a farmer plowed, that's too soft, I think.
Yeah, I've got a little bigger wheels on it.
Well, Chuck has dead sticked in a jet many a times. Just think, how do you like to dead stick land a jet? You have to be a pretty competent pilot to do that.
I'll say either that or pull the cord and eject.
What a coward. You're going to let a $40 million airplane go down?
U.S. taxpayers got a lot of money.
Nah, you write it right down. Okay, I shut the amp down. I need about 3 or 4 minutes to let her cool. So ask your buddy if he wants to buy my Sigma 3000D, and then I'll buy the Palstar.
I think he has his heart set on the ALADB.
Well, hey, it wouldn't be my first choice.
Yeah, he wants new, and I can't blame him.
Well, then if he's set on new, then have him buy a single tube. Maritron makes a single tube with a 3CX800 in it. Of course, it's expensive. He'd be much better off trying to find like I said, the Commander HF, what do they call it? The HF 2500's the 2-tube, and the little one's the HF, what's it, 1200? I don't know. I forgot what they call it. HF 1200 or something. I don't know. Whatever. But I'm telling you, it's the best amp I ever owned. It's just simply the best linear amplifier I've ever seen. It's an HF 1250. That's what it is.
Yeah, when I had the NCL 2000, that had the 8877s. Had 4 of them in there. That ceramic tetrodes.
No, that had 8122s.
Okay, but I'll tell you what, that was a nice amp.
That's a very nice amp, and it really is. That's a very, very, very nice amplifier.
And no 160 on it, just 10 to 80 meters.
Right, and that's the problem. It doesn't have 160. I had one of those. Beautiful amp. Hey, now you want to hear a good story? I bought it used. I bought it from a CB shop, and the guy that had it before then tried to drive it with an SB220. So he was driving it with like 400 watts, and he damaged one of the tubes. And I had it for about a year or so, and it kept on arcing and blowing the fuse. So finally the tube was shorted. So I went down to Sidley Electronics in Springfield, and they ordered me a brand new pair of RCA 8122-V1. The V1 designates a matched pair from RCA. What do you think a pair of 8122 V1 tubes brand new cost?
I have no idea.
$150.
That was a while ago.
It sure was, because those tubes now, it probably costs you, if you can get them, and you could find them, I bet you they'd be $1,200 or $1,300. Anyway, I put those 8122 V1s into that baby, and that thing just worked perfect.
That's what I like about the 80B, with 13500Z. If the thing, I lose a tube, a couple $100, I'll just put a new tube in it and call it a day.
I agree. If you're willing to get to 800 watts and you ran that at 800 watts, that's a great amp. But everybody's running them at 1,000 or 1,100, and then you're beating the crap out of the tube, and the thing splatters, and it's absolutely maxed out. I know it'll go higher, but you shouldn't run that above 800 watts, and even that's pushing it. You really shouldn't run it above 500 watts, but you should run it at the dissipation of the tube. The tube has a 500 watt dissipation. You run it at 500 watts, it'll last you for 40 years. That's like the Commander HF1250. That's got an 800 tube in it, and you could run that till the end of time at 800 watts, and you'd never have to put a tube in it.
Roger.
I used to run mine at 1,000 watts out, and it's actually very comfortable at 1,000 watts. Okay, I gave my amp 3 or 4 minutes to cool down. I can go now. 7-3, Tom. See you tomorrow. N1 DVO.
Okay, you rest easy now, Ray. KC3, KXB. Clear.
KD2 INS. KD2 INX.